make me wanna shout.
Hey Bills fans, Bills Mafia, Bills quarterback draft watchers. What is up? Welcome to another episode of the Circling the Wagons podcast, the only podcast that thinks one of the best parts of the NFL draft is the commissioner getting booed every time he walks to the podium. I'm your host, Nate. And we are continuing our off-season series of podcasts before the NFL draft. If you haven't had a chance, check out our last podcast where John, Mike, and I described the Wonderlic test. We took the Wonderlic test, and we're very humbled by the results. But in this episode, it will be solely based on the NFL draft and how it relates to the Bills. We'll dive into quarterbacks in particular, and at the end, we'll go over a few other positions in need that the Bills might draft if they end up staying put at 12 and 22. Either way, you'll be much more informed about the quarterbacks and the other top prospects after this episode and be ready for the draft on April 26th. I'm joined today by draft enthusiast Zack Scheetz. Welcome to the podcast, Zach.
Thanks for having me, Nate.
Isn't that one of the best parts of the draft, right? Like
it's great.
Roger Goodell getting booed nonstop. It's
Absolutely.
like, welcome to the 2018 draft. Boo!
Every fan base, no matter what the fan base is.
No matter what, it doesn't matter.
Nope.
Doesn't matter. There's actually a few reasons I wanted to have you on today. Number one, you're probably the most knowledgeable person I know when it comes to the NFL. And number two, you're the most plugged in person I know when it comes to college football, which is great because I don't know anything about college football. Like, I'm one of those guys that just starts to pay attention when the draft comes close, but all I know is just what I've read on mock drafts, and it's only limited. It's really all conjecture, I don't know what records these guys were or whatever, or what their strengths and weaknesses. I mean, I just know the very basic. I'm like a Cliff's Notes draft enthusiast. So, and then number three, reason why I have you on is that you're not a Bills fan. You're actually a 49ers fan, right?
That's correct.
So you understand the Bills as a team. You don't follow them as closely as we do, obviously, but you know about them. Your views about the Bills are unbiased compared to me and a lot of fans and homers out there. But you grew up in Western New York. Your family's Bills fans. Your dad and brother are Bills fans.
Yep.
So I asked you to read up on a bunch of different prospects specific to the Bills, watch tape on some guys, and you were nice enough to do it for our podcast. So first and foremost, thank you for doing that.
Not a problem.
In saying that, this is one of the most interesting drafts in a long time. Wouldn't you agree? I feel like this is one of the most hyped up drafts that we've had in a while.
Absolutely. I think that this draft has a lot less depth than drafts in the past, but the fact that there are so many intriguing quarterback prospects makes this draft much more interesting than drafts in the past because nobody knows what anybody like the Bills, like the Cardinals, even like the Patriots now with 2 first-round picks, what they're going to do in order to either move up for one of the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks or stay put.
Isn't it weird? I can't remember a time when people have been trying to get quarterbacks this many. It feel like even when it was the Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger year, people weren't jumping over each other like crazy to get these guys. Nobody, when the Steelers traded above to get Ben Roethlisberger, they didn't trade to number 3. They traded to number 11, and he's probably a much better prospect than a lot of these guys. I mean, is this a fact of, do you think that there are a lot of quarterback needy teams out there, or do you think the quarterback class is that good? Because what I'm worried about is that this quarterback class is office hot. So have you ever heard that term? Have you ever heard office hot?
I have now.
Urban Dictionary defines office hot as someone who is defined as hot, but only because of the lack of options at the office. So I'm wondering if these quarterbacks, there might actually be a couple of really good ones. So, we're going to talk about them, but then the rest might be just because there's a lot of people that are, there's a lot of guys that are single at the office. They're really looking for a quarterback. You know what I mean? So I guess that's what I'm worried about. What do you think about that? Do you think the quarterbacks are really that good?
I think the top tier of quarterbacks in this class can be put up against almost any quarterback class that I can remember in terms of talent. The guys that we'll talk about in a bit are they're not polished yet, most of them, but the upside is crazy good. Mm-hmm. Just a few of them, the top three in my mind, are very, very good prospects, and they will be game changers for whoever drafts them.
Cool. Awesome. Well, let's get into, actually, you kind of touched on it in general with this draft. You mentioned it's not a very deep draft. I remember reading before, right after the Super Bowl, Matt Miller had an article from Bleacher Report saying that this is one of the weakest drafts he's seen in a while. I mean, is it just a lack of elite talent, or is it a lack of depth in general compared to other drafts?
I think that there's a lack of talent overall compared to other drafts, but there are some positions in this draft that are fairly deep. Safety, running back, interior defensive line, and then there's some that aren't. Like an edge pass rusher and offensive tackle are fairly weak in this class. Shout out at NFL Draft Scout.
All right, sweet. What about your overall draft strategy? Like if you're an NFL GM, I know that there's always two different schools of thought. You either draft for need or you draft best player available, no matter what it is. Now, if they're close, obviously, best player available is almost the same as a player of need, then you obviously go need. But if there's a discrepancy at all, what's your strategy? If you were a GM, what would you do?
If I was a GM, my general draft strategy would always be to get a quarterback at any cost if I don't have a franchise guy. You cannot win in the NFL without a franchise quarterback. So if I'm picking, say, between picks 1 and 10, 1 and 15, somewhere in there, I'm going up to try and get a quarterback if I don't have one. If I do have one, like the Colts this year, I would absolutely draft best player available. Any top tier blue chip guy will help your team. That's the way I would look at it. If I was anywhere from like 16 to 32, I'd be looking more for positions of need because obviously my team is in a better position overall, talent and obviously draft pick wise, than the other teams in the top 15. So I think I would have a lot less holes if I was drafting from anywhere from 16 to 32 than from 1 to 15. And so I would be looking at my positions of need there as opposed to 1 to 15. You just need to get talent on your roster. You're talent void, basically. You're
really nothing without a quarterback. If you don't have quarterback, why even bother?
Absolutely.
Right? Well, this is what I'm worried about, okay? So there's a very realistic chance that the Bills stay put at 12, that they can't move into the top 5. And I mean, you've talked to me before the podcast that you think there's a chance there's 4 out of the top 5 picks are quarterbacks, right?
Yes.
So what I'm worried about as a Bills fan, if they can trade into that top 5 and get a quarterback and get one of those top 4 quarterbacks, is that all of a sudden they're getting guys that really have second round grades and they're taking them in the first round. Now, what scares me about this, so like we both play fantasy football. We're both big fantasy football fans. And I kind of equate it to this because it's the only time I've ever been even close to a GM, right? So in your fantasy football team, if you are eyeing Drew Brees as the best quarterback on your board and you need a quarterback and he gets taken right before you, but the guy next to him is like Matt Stafford, who's not terrible, mind you. He's really not awful. But he is not Drew Brees. He's never been Drew Brees, and he probably will never be Drew Brees. He's in a whole different tier. That's what I'm worried about. I don't want the Bills to go at number 12 and take a guy that's a whole other tier below when really they could start taking guys of impact, best player available. Let's say it is, a defensive tackle or a linebacker or something, maybe even a position of need or even not a position of need. Because I'm in the same boat as you, as I believe you need a quarterback, and I go back and forth with this all the time. Because at first I was like, you and I talked, I wanted to stay put at 21 and 22, just take, the best. This team has a lot of holes. The Bills they do have holes on it. They've traded away a lot of pieces and they haven't backfilled them.
Yes.
But somehow they've managed to make the playoffs. So I was like, well, let's fill those holes and then we'll worry about quarterback later. But the more you and I have talked over the last few weeks, I'm thinking the Bills need to do whatever they can to move up. But there's a chance they might not be able to.
I agree.
What would you do? I mean, if you're in that situation. So, okay, all right, let's talk. Now that we've gotten into it, let's talk quarterbacks. And before we start talking specific players, I want to know which attributes do you look for in a successful NFL quarterback from the college level? I mean, is there a specific thing you look for? Like, is it winning percentage of his college football team? Is it accuracy, arm strength, size, pocket awareness, mobility? I mean, coming from a pro-style offense, I mean, when you look at those guys, because you're a 49ers fan, you have Jimmy G, and he's great, and he didn't come from, necessarily a pro-style offense, I don't think.
That's correct.
So, but he's doing great. I mean, what do you look for from a college quarterback to be successful in the NFL?
I mean, for me, you have to look at all of those things. Now, those attributes are on a sliding scale for me. Definitely accuracy. You have to be accurate in the NFL. You have to fit the ball into tight windows because the defensive backs are so good.
Has a quarterback ever not been accurate in college and all of a sudden became accurate in the NFL?
Never.
Never, right?
Never in the history
right?
of the world.
Okay, we'll talk about Josh Allen later.
Yes,
okay.
we will.
All right. I remember that was a big knock on Jake Locker. Oh, he has everything. He's this, he's that, he's that. He comes from a pro-style offense, but he's not that accurate. Like, oh, okay, well, the most important thing. To me, accuracy is the most important thing. But, like you said, it's a sliding scale. You can't just have accuracy.
Yeah. I mean, I look at, pocket presence, mobility, arm strength is a big... You need to be able to make all NFL throws. You need to have an NFL IQ. You can't go out there and not know football. You need to know when to throw the ball away, not take a sack.
You need to know what coverage you're looking at.
Absolutely. Where
the matchups are. Like, that's one of the things I think was a huge knock on Tyrod Taylor last year, is that, I don't think he could read a defense. And
yes.
you have your thoughts on Tyrod Taylor from an outsider standpoint, which is nice.
I find it incredible that the Bills got what they got for Tyrod Taylor in that trade.
Yeah.
Good for the Bills.
Some wizardry right there, right?
Absolutely. Good on you, Brandon.
I know, right? But, I mean, there was a guy that just, I don't think, people always said, well, why don't they let him change plays at the line? And I'm like, because I don't think he has a mental capacity to do that. And I don't know if he knows what he's looking at. I mean, NFL IQ, like you said right there, is super important. And we really haven't seen that as Bills fans in a long time. Maybe Fitzpatrick, I guess. Even at some point, as smart as he was, I don't think he was necessarily football smart,
Yeah. I would think that also coming from a pro-style offense always helps in regards to having an NFL IQ and being able to read a defense. There are a lot of, especially in spread offenses, there's a lot of preset reads. Like, you go up there and you're like, okay, I know that I have hitches on both sides. Which side has 3 defensive backs? Which side has 2? Oh, the side has 2? Okay, I'm throwing it to that side. Like, It's a predetermined read. Whereas you see guys going in motion in NFL-style, pro-style offenses in college, like at Stanford or any of those schools that run pro-style systems. And you could see the thought process of the coaching staff and, in turn, the quarterback to be able to read that defense. Once you put a man in motion, you could tell if it's zone or man, and that dictates where you're going to look to throw the ball.
Mm-hmm. That's important because I don't think I always knew that. Maybe until I played Madden, I didn't know that, but but I've learned a lot from Madden about football.
Everybody has.
So, but I mean, the Bills never put anyone in motion. I don't know if it was because they didn't think it even mattered or because Rick Dennison was just an awful offensive coordinator. But anyway, so it's a sliding scale. There's definitely some, when you talk about mobility in a quarterback, you don't mean like Michael Vick mobility. You probably mean like mobility within a pocket,
yes.
Right?
The ability to climb in a pocket is huge. The ability to trust your pocket and be able to slide side to side depending on pressure and where it's coming from, and being able to feel that pressure. Mm-hmm. That's a very, very underrated quality that most quarterbacks in the NFL, your Aaron Rodgers, your Drew Brees, Tom Brady, is amazing at it.
Yeah.
Just subtle movements, and the great ones have it. They just do. And so that's something I definitely look for.
Yeah, I feel like that's almost got to be at the top of the list because, like you said, so few. As much as I don't like Tom Brady, I mean, he's a wizard in the pocket. The guy has no athletic ability whatsoever in his giraffe-like legs. He cannot move at all outside the pocket. But inside the pocket, the guy makes half a step right at the last second. When that defensive end is bending around the corner, is about to take his arm on him, the guy steps up right at he's unbelievable back there. And Aaron Rodgers, the same thing. I would even give Big Ben a little bit, but I think he just has guys bounce off him more often than him actually feeling pressure.
Yeah, he's so hard to bring down.
Yeah.
He's crazy.
So we'll talk about NFL comparables to these guys, but there are basically 6 top quarterbacks that everyone discusses. There's Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, and Mason Rudolph. If I were to give you an over/under, and I know you're a betting guy, if I were to give you an over/under, Zach's a big DFS fan, by the way, so
just a bit. I dabble.
And so if I were to give you the over/under on how many quarterbacks go, because we just talked about possibly 4 going in the top 5, how many do you think go in the first round? Like all 6 of these guys, or like maybe 6 and like another one like that's lower on the radar by like a team like the Patriots that can develop a guy for a couple years?
I definitely think that 6 quarterbacks will go in the first round of the NFL draft.
Wow.
And it's because they are that talented, some of them, and then others, they can be developed. And when you draft a quarterback in the first round, you get an extra year of control, the 5th-year team option to pick up.
That's huge.
On the cheap. So it's cap smart to trade back up into the first round to take a quarterback that you think will be your quarterback of the future, just because you'll have that extra year of control.
Yeah, that's huge. You're right, man. I was going through the quarterback draft since 2000, and there have not been many. I think there was only 2 where like 4 quarterbacks were even taken in the first round, and I don't know if there has been one that's 5 quarterbacks. Probably not since '83 or something like that.
Yeah, it hasn't happened.
And we're talking
in a long
almost
time.
20 years now. So this could be a historically relevant draft when we look back at this one. Are we going to look back at it like the '83 draft or the 2004 draft? Because you think about it, it's been 15 years since the 2000.
Yeah, that's
before
crazy
that,
to
it was
think
20
about.
years since the damn. Yeah, it's insane. But what's funny is all those teams that have those guys from the '04 draft are now looking at quarterbacks again late in the draft.
Yep.
Because they need to replace those guys eventually. And the Bills still don't have a quarterback. They didn't have a quarterback the whole time since 2004, and they still don't have one. So let's talk about these top quarterbacks. Let's go one by one. I mean, if you were to rank these quarterbacks, and we'll talk about each one after that. What is your and it's different for everyone. So I will state this in Zach's defense, whether it's whether it's a common knowledge what everyone thinks is the number 1 quarterback or not. Like, I mean, Mel Kiper thought Jamarcus Russell was by far the best quarterback in the 07 draft or whatever. so we won't hold this to you as you being good at whatever, but seriously though, I mean, in your opinion, who do you think is the best quarterback prospect in this draft?
My guy in this draft, I've said it since basically the start of college football season this year, has been Sam Darnold, the quarterback from USC. He has ideal size. He has great feet in the pocket, great mobility out of the pocket. He can make throws. He's the most accurate passer on the run or on the move in this quarterback class. A knock on him is he turned the ball over a lot. He had 20 interceptions in his last 20 games. He was asked to do everything at USC. They didn't have a defense, so he would always need to be throwing. And the more you throw, the more chances you have to take, and the more interceptions he threw. But I think he has the highest ceiling of any quarterback in this class to be an NFL stud for years to come.
Do you think he's going to be the first one taken by Cleveland?
Yes.
If you had to guess,
I think he's going 1 overall.
Okay. There's no question in your mind that Saquon Barkley, the running back from Penn State, is going to go number 1 overall. You don't think the Browns will brown that one up, do you?
I don't. I actually respect the Browns and the people that they have in the front office now.
Nice.
So
even after that Tyrod Taylor trade.
yes, even then, there are guys like Scott McLuhan who used to be in the front office for the 49ers who know what they're doing and they don't screw around in the draft. I don't think there's any way they're taking Saquon Barkley or anybody else at 1 overall. They'll definitely be taking a quarterback, and in my opinion, there's no way that it's not going to be Sam Darnold.
Do you think Sam Darnold starts day 1 for the Browns, or you think that he sits behind Tyrod?
I think he sits behind Tyrod.
That's kind of, I feel like that's a common theme for all these quarterbacks, and you kind of hit on it earlier, is that all these guys are going to need time to develop, but eventually, like, the ceiling that they reach could be potentially be higher than Marcus Mariota, maybe even, or something like that.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of top quarterbacks recently.
Yeah, definitely. My NFL comp for Sam Darnold is Andrew Luck. I think he could be very, very good in the future if given time to develop, if given weapons, if not having to scramble for his life like he did at USC, and if being not being able or not being asked to do too much too quickly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think them having Tyrod definitely affords them that, at least. I mean, I think one of the other knocks I read about Darnold is he just hasn't started a lot of games, like only 20 or 21 college games, which is not that many.
No.
So he was a redshirt freshman when he first started for USC.
Yep.
And so this would have been his sophomore year. So really, I mean, he's only had a couple of years as a starter. Not even 2 full seasons. So, I mean, he definitely, whereas Andrew Luck was a senior when he came out, right?
Yeah, senior at Stanford.
Which is very rare for
Yep.
top quarterbacks to stay in his seniors. So, okay. So we talked about Sam Darnold. I think I know who your next guy is, but why don't you let me know? Your number 2 guy.
My number 2 guy in this class is Josh Rosen, the quarterback from UCLA. He's even taller than Darnold, 6'4", 226 pounds. He has great feet. He can make any throw. He's probably the best standstill natural thrower in this class. He has some knocks. There are questions that have come out in the media recently, actually, from his coach at USC, which is insane to me that he would rip on one of his own kids this way. But
Jim Mora, right? What did he say?
Jim Mora. He basically said, Josh Rosen's a millennial, and you need to be able to challenge him mentally in order to keep his attention, or else his attention will be diverted to something else, not football.
Jeez.
I'm like, that was
Wow.
incredible to me that he came out in the papers and said that. But
What I don't get why coaches knock on their players. Now, the only thing I can think of now, what year was Josh Rosen now? Did he just finish his junior year? Is that why? Is it because he didn't come back for senior year? Do you think Jim Moore is a little pissed about that?
I have no idea.
Because the only other time coaches really knock their players for not staying is like, who is it? Pete Carroll and Mark Sanchez.
Yeah.
Or no, it wasn't Mark Sanchez. Was it?
Yeah, it was Mark Sanchez. Yep.
And there was another quarterback recently. Was it Brian Kelly or?
Yeah, it was Brian Kelly and Deshaun Kaiser.
Deshaun Kaiser last year. This is the only reason they're like, oh, these guys aren't ready.
But
Wow.
He has a knock. One of his knocks is his attitude. He has this. He's a California kid. He's an LA kid. He has that LA attitude. You could tell. I mean, there's been pictures of him. He had a hot tub in his dorm room. Like
So he's living the Matt Leinart style.
He is living the life in college, and people think that he's not as dedicated or concentrated on football as he needs to be. Also, he had a little bit of durability issues in college. He missed a couple games due to concussions. So that could be a problem at the next level.
Yeah, gotcha. How was his situation? I feel like he was throwing a lot at UCLA too because their team was garbage.
Absolutely.
Like so I mean, but in doing that, like he put up some good numbers, right? So it wasn't just.
Yep. He was asked to win a lot of games. UCLA had less of a running attack than USC did. Mm-hmm. USC has actually one of the best running backs in this class coming out this year too. So, but UCLA was always behind. They didn't have defense. And he stepped up in a lot of games to win the game for the Bruins.
So the only thing, I guess, is it the character things that for you puts him below Sam Darnold, or do you think Sam Darnold's ceiling is that much higher in the long run?
I think
Because from what you're saying, it sounds like Josh Rosen might be better right now than Sam Darnold.
I'd agree with that. I would say that right now, if you had to start one of these kids, if you were bringing them in to start day one, you would probably want Josh Rosen.
Mm-hmm.
If you are drafting for the future and you have a guy like the Browns do in Tyrod, as questionable as that may be,
What?
you would definitely want to take Darnold. I think that their ceilings are about the same. I think the Darnold's is a little bit higher, but I've been a Darnold guy for a long time. You know this.
Yep.
But I don't think you can go wrong with either of these guys, to tell you the truth.
Cool. I have heard them as 1A, 1B, almost the exact order. I feel like that's pretty much the consensus. Now, number 3, are you going to throw a wrench in this, or who's your number 3 guy?
My number 3 guy is a little bit of a wrench. It's Baker Mayfield.
Ooh, nice.
The quarterback from Oklahoma.
Nice. The Bills have been linked to Baker Mayfield a lot lately, by the way.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
I just love the kid's attitude, and he's tough. He's a great leader. You can see it on the field. Sometimes he's done some foolish things. You've also seen that on the sideline. But I think the more he matures and the more he develops, he's going to be the guy you're going to look to on whatever team drafts him. He's going to be the focal point of the offense, and he's going to be the guy that his own teammates look to lead them. He has great mobility. He is very accurate to all 3 levels of the field, short, medium, deep. He has elite red zone efficiency. He almost never turned the ball over in the red zone for his entirety of his career at Oklahoma.
And he was a senior, right? So he played.
Yes.
Wow.
He walked on.
He
was a
on.
walk on.
Wow.
And then he won the starting job and just ran with it. His knock is his size. He's only 6'1", 215 pounds. And he comes from the Big 12, and they ran more of a spread offense in college as opposed to under center and taking snaps every single play under center. Mm-hmm. So he put up major numbers. A knock widely known in the Big 12 is that they don't play defense. There is lots and lots of offense, up and down the field shootouts every week, and that led to him putting up the numbers that he did. But
he did almost win against Georgia too. Which
he
Georgia's obviously they were in the national champ. So
they were right there.
They're right there. I mean, so that was good competition, at least to.
Oh yeah,
and he wasn't the reason they lost that game, right?
No. They don't have a defense. That's why they lost.
Okay.
It was. I forget what the score of that game was, but it was a major shootout, and it went into overtime. And then
Rose Bowl, right?
Yeah, the backs were both backs from Georgia were just unreal.
Yeah.
My comp to him is Drew Brees. I mean, he's shorter in stature, but he has a big arm. He's accurate to all levels, like I said, and
he's a leader, right? It sounds like
he's a major leader. If you see him, if you watch any sort of pregame warm-ups with him, you'll see him like hyping up his guys. Sometimes he talks to the other team too. That's been known to happen. I mean, this past year, the crotch grab,
that's one of my favorite parts of this. My favorite highlights of him.
Taking the Oklahoma flag to the middle of the horseshoe against Ohio State and jamming it in there after they beat them.
Oh, really?
That happened this year. So he has a bit of swagger to him.
Yeah.
But he is a guy who will work his butt off. I mean, he came in as a walk-on, like I said, had to sit, and then he won the starting job, and he ran with it. And for me, that was huge to see that he was able to do that. That just shows the making of what kind of man he is and what kind of leader he is. You
know what that reminds me of a lot, actually, is not the personality thing, but it reminds me of Russell Wilson, because I know Russell Wilson changed colleges.
Yeah.
He went from, North Carolina to Wisconsin.
NC State to Wisconsin, yep.
He lost a job from Mike Lennon to Mike Lennon. And he went to Wisconsin. I don't know if he was a walk-on, but he transferred. And he was another shorter guy, but he was very accurate, had good mobility. And he fell to the 3rd round just because of his size, basically.
Yep.
If he was 6'4" or whatever, he probably would have been drafted in the 1st round.
Yeah, probably.
So when you say that out loud, it makes me think that Baker Mayfield is actually like a really good prospect. His only knock being, he was arrested for something too, wasn't he? Arrested once. I thought I heard that, or it was like something. It wasn't anything major.
It was like a misunderstanding.
Yeah. But then the attitude thing. But it was more of like a super hyper competitiveness.
Oh, absolutely.
As opposed to he's just a dick.
Yes.
Like like he's kind of a jerk. No, it was just he's really like that kind of fire that I've seen in highlights and some games is like it kind of reminds me of like Tom Brady when he gets fired up on the sidelines.
Yeah.
And everyone's into it and he's yelling but for the most part like the guy he's just super motivated. If Baker Mayfield was 6'4", would he be the consensus top quarterback prospect, do you think? Or would it still be Sam Darnold?
He would be 1A, 1B, and there'd be a 1C. And he'd be right there.
Gotcha. So he is like, so right now you kind of have Darnold and Rosen at one tier, and then the next tier right below it is Baker Mayfield?
Yes.
Or is he on that same tier?
He would be the tier below.
Tier below.
Yeah, Rosen and Darnold.
Mm-hmm. Do you think he would probably need some time to develop too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just like I said, he ran a spread offense. So just depending on what team drafts him and what offense he goes to, he will definitely need time. I mean, the NFL playbook is like absurdly complex, and yeah, they will. Any of these guys are going to need time to decipher and to actually learn that.
But I mean, the huge thing that you said that stands out to me is his accuracy at all three levels because he's got an arm.
Oh
right?
yeah, he has a cannon,
and he's accurate. Like that's huge. Like I feel like when you say that he'll be successful, as opposed to so we talked about Baker Mayfield and Josh Rosen just now. You said they both have personality knocks. Which one do you think is a bigger knock, personality wise, the Baker Mayfield one or the Josh Rosen?
I think a lot of the Josh Rosen knock on his attitude is kind of he's just different. He's different than other people. He is a millennial. He has other interests.
All these guys are millennials.
I know. This is widely known, but I was just using Jim Moore's words. But
yeah.
He has other interests. And yes, like sometimes he might come off as like a playboy a little bit, like an LA kid, like look at me, like my dad, like my family has money, like but I think that's overblown. I really do. I think he's whatever. When he gets to the NFL, you're going to get a kid that is ready to work his butt off. I mean, I think, and then in terms of Mayfield's knocks, I think that's just going to come with maturity. I really do. I think you're not going to be doing crotch grabs. You're not going to be doing any of that stuff in the NFL. You never see it. You just don't. I mean,
I kind of wish we saw it more.
I mean, the last person to do stuff that was completely out there was T.O., Randy Moss, Ocho Cinco, like those guys.
Miss those guys.
I do too.
I know. Best time ever.
Shout out T.O., Hall of Fame, Randy Moss too. But yeah, I think that both of those, Rosen's knocks are overblown and Baker's will come the more that he matures.
Okay, before we get to your number 4 quarterback, I want to touch on what you just mentioned about LA quarterbacks. So you have Sam Darnold from USC, Josh Rosen from UCLA, both LA guys.
Yep.
And I'm trying to think, and I've heard people tell me this, especially Buffalo fans, is when was the last time there's been a successful quarterback from Southern California? And I always thought that was a stupid comparable because you have guys from California, they're successful. You have Tom Brady from Michigan, or he played in Michigan, but he was from California. Aaron Rodgers from California, and their part is like, oh, well, they're from Southern California, or Northern California. Literally, I mean, maybe Carson Palmer. When was the last time you saw that? That was it, right?
Yeah, Carson Palmer would be the guy that I would have answered there.
It doesn't happen that often, though. Now, do you think that's a matter of those guys just don't translate well, or there just hasn't been a guy good enough to do well in the NFL?
I think it is. I definitely don't think they have been good enough to thrive in the NFL, but depending on where they went in the draft, what situation they were put into, depending on what team drafted them, that's a major part of what an NFL quarterback's career is going to be. We've heard that Cleveland is the place where quarterbacks go to die. Their careers just die when they get there. You need to have the right fit. If you have the right fit, then you're going to be able to eventually thrive if you have the tools and the smarts to be able to actually learn the playbook and then put it into practice. I don't think that it's a Southern California thing at all. I think that that's definitely overblown. And
what about playing in the cold weather? Do you think that matters? Because these kids aren't used to it, you know?
Yeah.
Like Derek Carr has like an 0-5 record when he's played below 40 degrees. You know what I mean?
It definitely plays a role. I don't think that you can put like losses squarely on the shoulders of like a guy like Derek Carr or any other Southern quarterback that's playing up in the north in the snow. But it definitely is a thing. It's a stat that people look at.
Didn't Brett Favre come from Mississippi?
Yes.
Like that's a ridiculously hot state, and he played fine in Green Bay. You
Yep.
know, I think that if you're good, it doesn't matter. If you're not good, it's used as an excuse. You know,
Fit, system, and talent.
like I don't think Matt Leinart, the reason why he didn't succeed is because he was from California. I just don't think he was that good of a quarterback. You know, when it came down to it.
Yep. I agree. 100%.
Because he had enough chances at different teams, he would have finally just caught on or done well.
Yeah, he would have found his fit, but he didn't. And that's what I mean, like by fit, talent, and scheme or system. Like sooner or later, you're either gonna hit it big with your first team, not have the talent to do well enough, or go to another team and find a better scheme fit. So
Okay, so we did Baker Mayfield, your number 3 quarterback. We went in a couple of circles there, but that's good. No, that's awesome. So your number 4 guy, is this going to surprise anyone, or is this a normal number 4 guy?
I think this should be a pretty normal, straightforward next guy on the list of most prognosticators. It's Josh Allen from Wyoming. The kid is a beast. He has elite size. He's 6'5", 237. He has a rocket of an arm. There's been reports out there that he's able to throw 80, 85 yards standing still. The one thing that people have, he has a couple knocks on him. The first major one for me is accuracy. He is not accurate. He's just not. There are plays that make you when you watch him, there are plays that your eyes are just like, oh my God, that throw was a genius. And then you watch him the next 3 plays, and he'll miss guys that are just open. And you're like
in clean pockets and everything?
Clean pockets.
Like not running for his life, just standing there, just can't throw.
Just missing. Like sailing sideline routes. And I'm just...
Because he was amazing in the Senior Bowl, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean...
I saw him fit a
workout numbers, he's very good. But yeah, like you said, at the Senior Bowl, he put on a show. I have a key stat for him. He played at Wyoming, so it wasn't one of the perennial powers of college football by any means. He played in a weak conference. His Big 5 conference games or ranked team games, he played 5 of them in his career. He was 77 for 155, which is a 49.6% completion percentage.
Not ideal.
Not great. 765 yards in 5 games.
In 5 games?
Yep. A 4.9 yards per attempt passing, which is super short.
That's terrible by NFL standards.
Yep.
College standards are much higher than that.
4 touchdowns, 12 interceptions.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So
Red flag.
He is so polarizing because the plays where he is good, he is great. And anybody who sees him, their eyes light up when he plays well. But when he's bad, he is bad. And there's an NFL comp that I have for him. He's not as mobile as this guy, but Cam Newton, I mean, he has elite size. He has a rocket arm, but you see Cam Newton miss throws every single Sunday.
Does he?
He should be making these throws.
Is Cam not an accurate quarterback overall?
He's all over the place.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
and he's mobile.
Yeah, he is mobile. He can fit balls. Cam has a monster arm. He can fit balls into windows, just like Josh can. But it's just not for me. I mean, accuracy is my number one thing that I look at, like I've said. And he just doesn't have it. He has pretty much a lot of everything else that you would look for, but
Now you've seen, so let me put it on this level. Now I didn't talk about this earlier, but my gauge for all of these quarterbacks is in order for the Bills specifically to get to the next level, they need a quarterback that's better than Tyrod Taylor. Now, in some terms, I'm not saying that that's much, but in other terms, I'm saying it might be more than what these guys are offering. So when you say not accurate, you've seen Tyrod Taylor play. Do you think that this guy, in a couple of seasons, do you think Josh Allen has a potential to be better than Tyrod Taylor?
Yes.
Yes. No, unequivocally. You did not.
No question.
You did not take much time to answer that question.
No question in my mind.
Okay.
I personally don't find Tyrod Taylor to be any sort of good quarterback in any sense of the word. I know Bills fans fall on either side of the fence on that one.
Oh, yeah. You just pissed off a lot of fans right there.
Yeah.
But then you also got the fist bump from a lot of fans, too. So polarizing he was so ridiculously polarizing. But I guess, his big thing was not turning the ball over. How is Josh Allen? You just gave me the big five numbers. In general, did he turn the ball over a lot, too?
He turned the ball over a lot against teams that could actually play college football at a level that he should be judged against. Mm-hmm. Some of the teams that Wyoming plays in their conference aren't great. Also, the talent level around Josh Allen on Wyoming wasn't great either. So, you have to look at that kind of both ways. Like, he isn't accurate, but his receivers really weren't helping him out much. His offensive line wasn't great. He was always running around. But it's just, I think unequivocally, in the right system, Josh Allen will be a better quarterback than Tyrod Taylor.
Okay, good. Well, I just want to kind of put Bills fans at ease, and me and myself also, because like I said, I think with a quarterback better than Tyrod Taylor, they would have won against the Jaguars in the playoffs game.
Oh, absolutely.
Just somebody that could throw the ball for more than 150 yards.
And this kid has the arm to win you games.
Okay.
It's that simple. He has a rocket arm that can fit into any window. It's just a matter of him actually doing it. Mm-hmm. I think that
Which sometimes he does. He's not completely inaccurate.
Oh, yeah.
Like you said, sometimes he makes amazing passes, then sometimes you shake your head, you're like, wait, what was that?
That 49.6% stat that I said, that was only against the best teams that he played in his career. His conference game, his lower level competition, he had much better stats than that. That's why he is being talked about where he is by guys like Mel Kiper and Todd McShay. Mel has him going 1 overall right now to the Browns. Todd doesn't. So, he's a pretty polarizing prospect.
Yeah. What about the comparables you've heard about Carson Wentz? Are they just two completely different guys? Or do you think people do that because he's a big, tall guy with, from a small conference? Where was Wentz from? North Dakota State or something?
Yep, North Dakota State.
So then you have another guy up there, too, in one of those big states with like 10,000 people in it.
Yeah, I think that is a majority of where that comes from. I think that Josh Allen has a better arm than Carson Wentz does when he came out. But Carson had a lot fewer negatives against him than Josh does. Okay. He was accurate. I'm just gonna put that out there. That's my thing. And Carson was able to show against some decent teams that he was able to produce and move an offense.
So, Josh Allen, did he play in a pro-style offense?
Yes.
And he also had the highest Wonderlic test score, right? How much do you put into the Wonderlic test? Is it also a sliding scale? Like, you don't need to see your guys be Ryan Fitzpatrick, but you don't want them to be Vince Young, right?
Yeah, they need to have the mental capacity to learn an NFL playbook and be able to actually put that into practice on the field during games where everything is moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and you have to be able to make reads and make throws and lead a team down the field with audibles or play calls. And some people, like Vince Young, couldn't do that, as well as some guys, like you said. I'm blanking.
Which guys couldn't do that?
No,
Which guy said?
Who'd you say scored high on the one?
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, Fitzpatrick. That's right. Wow. I was thinking Josh McCown, and I was like, that's not right. But I put some stock in the Wonderlic test.
Yeah.
You want them to be above probably a 20, I would say. Mm-hmm. That's just my number. Mm-hmm.
And you want quarterbacks to be pretty high in general.
Yeah. I mean, and anything below a 20 should give you some
It's a red flag.
Yeah, it's a bit of concern.
Okay. Gotcha. So Josh Allen having the best, I mean, that's like another positive. Like you said, maybe his accuracy isn't great and he doesn't, but there's also things as far as, completion percentage, which wasn't great in Big 5 games.
Yes.
But then he has a great IQ, and
Yeah.
So, okay. So I can, man, this draft class is just polarizing. We haven't even gotten to number 5 yet. And there's just so many, there's definitely not one Andrew Luck in this class for sure. I can just tell. Okay, so we talked number 4 being Josh Allen. Number 5, who's your number 5 guy?
This might be a little bit of a surprise to a lot of people. My number 5 is Mason Rudolph, kid from Oklahoma State. He comes from another spread system, so that's a knock, but he has good pocket mobility. He keeps his eyes downfield. He's able to make those slight shifts in the pocket to avoid pressure. He's definitely mobile. He has and can run the zone read, which a lot of these other guys you probably don't want to ask him to do. His accuracy on the move is a question, and his arm strength and throws on the move is also a question. But he manipulates defenses as good, if not better, than every other quarterback in this class, to me. With his eyes, he manipulates safeties. He was making throws down the seam against West Virginia that I was like, the safety from West Virginia kept getting beat over and over and over again. And it was just a subtle look off to the left that moved him just enough for him to fit a throw down the seam. And it was super impressive.
So he's accurate. He can actually read a defense, because if he's using his eyes, he definitely knows where the play is going to go, where to.
Yep. Yeah, he knows his keys on defense, what to read and where to go with the football off of those reads. So it shows a little bit of NFL IQ too, and he really doesn't have any off the field knocks. Okay. So that is different to a couple of these guys that we've mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Okay, was he a senior too, or is he just out of his junior year? Do you know?
He's a senior, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So he has experience on his side.
Yep, and he was
part of the Big 12. They don't have defense either, right?
They don't.
So he put up gaudy stats like Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, he put up monster numbers, but
he had like 40-something touchdowns or whatever, just like unbelievable.
Yeah, he was great. he was a great watch. I mean, any of those Big 12 games are just shootouts on offense, and you'd love to watch that as an impartial fan.
Would you? If somebody took Mason Rudolph ahead of Josh Allen, would that surprise you, or would you be like, I can kind of see that, because he has size too, right? I mean, Mason Rudolph is not a small guy.
No, he's 6'3", 235 at the combine. Would it surprise me if he went before Josh Allen? It definitely would.
Really? Okay. So he's like the next tier, then, you're saying. So we have 1A, 1B with Darnold and Rosen.
Yep. And then Baker would be his own tier.
Okay.
Allen would be his own tier.
Okay.
And then Mason Rudolph and the next guy that I'm going to talk about will be in that tier. But gotcha. Mason Rudolph is
your number 5 guy.
He's my guy. Okay. Like he's one of the guys that I watch, and I genuinely believe that if he lands in the right system, he'll be able to flourish in the NFL. So
you're kind of rooting for him a little bit.
Definitely.
Nice.
Definitely.
Nice. Cool. Again, better than Tyrod, probably.
Yes.
Okay. Should I even bother asking that question? No, actually, this next guy, I think, is very important. I asked this question. Okay. Very divisive with Bills fans. So let's talk about. I think we're going to have to divide this into 2 podcasts, because we've talked so long about quarterbacks, and the next one we haven't even touched on other players. But let's talk about your number 6 quarterback, which you feel could very definitely go in the first round, and almost definitely will.
Yes. It's Lamar Jackson from Louisville. Heisman Trophy winner. He's 6'2", 216. He is the most athletic quarterback prospect to come out in years. His ability to pull the ball down and take off and run is incredible. He's a game breaker. He could take it for 6 on any given play. He isn't your typical quarterback prospect, and pretty much every single quarterback, your typical NFL quarterback has certain metrics. He falls short in pretty much all of those. He kind of needs an offense to be catered to him a little bit, a la Colin Kaepernick,
Michael
Vick. That was my NFL comp for him, by the way.
More athletic than Michael Vick, or do you think Michael Vick will always be in a class by himself?
I think he's in a class by himself, but I would put Lamar Jackson like right underneath him. He's a game breaker. He literally can take any play for 6. He more so than any other kid in this class or the classes previously.
Do you think that he can do that in the NFL level, because college is different? Tyrod Taylor, is...
I think that he will have success, maybe not as much of a 60-yard quarterback keeper around the edge for 6, but he could take it for 10, 12 first down yards. Like, he sees... He feels pressure, and he pulls the ball down, and he could scramble for a first down, no problem. He took a lot of hits in college. That was a major knock on him as well. He had some concussion issues. He had some injury issues. He missed some games. But I have a key stat for him as well. His total versus ranked opponents in his career, which he played at Louisville, so he played at some decent schools, Clemson being one of them. He was 148 for 274, which is a 54% completion percentage, for 1,996 yards, 12 touchdowns, 11 picks. So, I mean, he was almost 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. This is obviously not including his running stats, which were just off the charts. But
yeah, which you can't count on that.
No.
Passing.
It depends on what system and what, if an offensive coordinator wants to cater his offensive system to allow Lamar Jackson to thrive.
I want to say I probably did most of the reading I've done on quarterbacks on Lamar Jackson, because at the time before the Bills traded up to 12, like, they were staying put at 21 and 22. So in my head, I'm thinking, well, these guys, they're definitely going to, take a quarterback then, and who's available in Lamar Jackson. And it sounds like, the guy has incredible athletic ability, but it sounds like from year to year, he's progressed as a passer.
He has.
And I've seen, now, of course, I'm only seeing the highlights of the great plays.
Yep.
But I've seen plays where he's seen pressure. I don't know how good his offensive line was at Louisville, so I can't speak to that. I don't know if it was good or bad.
They weren't terrible.
They weren't terrible? Okay.
No, they weren't elite. But there's a tackle, Garyon Kristen, in this class that's coming out that he's in a pretty weak tackle class, so he's probably going to go within the first 2 rounds, I would say, somewhere.
Okay, gotcha.
But
so he had decent protection.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I remember seeing a play where, like, a guy was completely unblocked, came right at him, he sidestepped him, kept his eyes downfield, and, like, threw a dart. I mean, arm strength is not an issue for him either.
Not.
He can, like, flick the wrist and just go 60 yards.
He can sling
He's not maybe a Josh Allen, but I mean, for a guy, because like you said, what is he, 6'2", 6'3"?
He is 6'2".
And, like, he's like a skinny 6'2", though, right?
Yeah,
like
216.
216. Like, he's not like a big, like, bulky guy like Josh Allen. So he flicks the wrist. I mean, it's pure athleticism.
Oh, yeah. The ball doesn't flutter at all.
No. And I saw, and he made this pass, and he hit the guy in stride. And as a Bills fan, when I first saw this, I saw this during the college football season. I'm like, this guy, I've never seen a Bills quarterback do this since maybe Drew Bledsoe. So I see this, and I'm like, this guy could automatically make the Bills better at that position. So the guy is more athletic than a lot of players. Is he a better passer than Tyrod Taylor? Should I even ask that anymore?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, he is a better passer than Tyrod Taylor.
Okay.
I actually think that if the Bills don't move up for a quarterback, Brian Daboll might become a little bit infatuated with Lamar Jackson.
Oh, yeah?
And what he brings to the table, with Daboll having experience with Jalen Hurts at Alabama, who is a less than good thrower of the football. But he is super athletic, and obviously they won the national championship last year. So Brian Daboll can do some things with a mobile quarterback, and the added dimension that Lamar can actually throw the ball a little bit would only make Daboll fall in love with him more, I would think.
So we didn't mention this earlier, but you are a huge Alabama fan.
I wouldn't say huge, but yeah.
You're the biggest Alabama fan I know.
They're my team. They're my team. I like Nick Saban. I like excellence, and what Alabama and Nick Saban have done over the last decade has been incredible.
It's a dynasty. It's unbelievable, right?
Yep.
So you've seen Brian Daboll is it Daboll, right?
Yes.
It is, right? Okay. As offensive coordinator for the Crimson Tide, and you say that, so if knowing what you know about how they ran the offense in Alabama, which of those quarterbacks do you think would be? Now, they had two different types of quarterbacks, right? So you can't just say that they had Jalen Hurts, who they benched halfway through the game for
Tua.
And he was more of a pocket passer.
Yes, he can sling it.
So which kind of quarterback do you think Brian Daboll would prefer to have?
I think that the Bills should look to get the best quarterback prospect possible. I don't think that you want to hang your hat on or have your heart set on Lamar Jackson and then possibly not even get him, and then you're just at a loss. I think that Brian Daboll can get the best out of whichever type of quarterback you can that the Bills end up drafting, if they end up drafting one.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're drafting one. It's just a matter of which one can they get.
I'm glad we agree on that.
Yeah.
But he's shown that he has the ability to transform his offense depending on what quarterback type he has in the game. The national championship, Hurts gets knocked out and Tua comes in, and you immediately see the downfield throws start to open up, the play action pass. He changed the game around from Jalen Hurts running the zone read with all of the stable of running backs that Alabama has. The offense changed, and it was like a light switch flip. Mm-hmm. So I think that Daboll will be able to get the best out of whichever guy the Bills bring in.
That's good to know. That's promising. And, I mean,
also,
you think...
also having LaShawn McCoy will help him immensely. I mean, the guy is a top 5 running back in the NFL, so
good.
That always helps.
Good. That'll help. If there was... At what point, if the Bills stay put at 12 and they don't end up moving up, at which quarterback comes off the board in your top 6, do you say the Bills shouldn't even take him? They should wait till 22 to take one of those guys. Like, I mean, do you say like a Josh Allen? If Josh Allen is available at 12, do they take him? Or do they just wait to see what's available at 22?
I don't think that Josh Allen will be available at 12.
Top 5, right? You think he's going to
yes.
4 out of the top?
I think it's going to be Darnold, Rosen, Mayfield, Allen in the top 5 or 6, depending on what teams do.
Do you think the Giants take a quarterback?
Yes.
You do? You don't think they'll trade out?
If they get blown away with an offer, they might think about it. But how many times are you going to be drafting in the top 2 or 3 picks with a chance at a franchise quarterback, with Eli having maybe 1 or 2 decent kind of years left?
Yeah, really.
Because you got to be looking down the road a little bit. And if you're not drafting in the top 5, look what you're going to have to give up to get to the top 5 in a future draft that might not be as rich in quarterback prospects as this one is, to actually go up and get a franchise changer.
So if the Giants don't want to move back, which Dave Gettleman is the new GM for the Giants, he's never moved back in his career with the Panthers. And I don't think he's ever moved up either. I don't think he's ever moved.
He just doesn't trade.
It's
incredible.
Do you see that as a good thing or bad? That's a bad thing.
Bad
right?
thing.
Yeah.
I don't like that at all.
Yeah. So he doesn't move back. So you have to figure, based on what we just said, the Browns at 1 take a quarterback. The Giants at 2 take a quarterback. The Jets are definitely taking a quarterback at 3.
100%.
The Browns won't take one, and they probably won't trade out, right? It doesn't sound like it.
It depends on if they get blown away or not with an offer. I mean, I think that to say that a team will definitely not move is just, I mean, any team will move for a price. Everybody's got a price. Every pick has a price. If you're willing to overpay, maybe they'll think about it. But I would think it would go quarterback to Cleveland, quarterback to the Giants, quarterback to the Jets, probably Saquon to the Browns at 4 if they don't move. Mm-hmm. And then I really think that...
You think the Broncos are taking one?
The Broncos have to take one, depending on who's left, depending on if they like him or not. Because they only signed Case Keenum to a 2-year deal. So they need to have a little bit of an eye to the future, too.
Gotcha. You don't think that they would look at Bradley Chubb or any one of those guys at the top? I mean, because at this point, if the Browns take a non-quarterback at 4, that's the first non-quarterback off the board.
Yep.
So they could have their choice at like the second best non-quarterback position or the fourth best quarterback.
Yeah, I could see the Broncos either taking a quarterback.
You think they'd ever trade down to like the Bills?
If they are not taking a quarterback, I could absolutely see them trading down a little bit.
Probably not to the Bills. That might be a little
12
too far.
12 is far to drop.
It's far, right?
It is, especially in this class. There are probably 11 top tier blue chip guys that are can't miss guys pretty much, and then
so that's why 12 is a tough.
12 is like
tough
the
pill
number
to swallow.
where in my head 12 is the number where a team in the top 5 or 6 of the draft might think twice about moving back just because they don't know what type of player they're going to be able to get there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think the smart move would obviously be to take a quarterback. I'm a big proponent of drafting quarterbacks until you have a franchise guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when that trade was made for Cordy Glenn with the Bengals, the Bills moved up from 21 to 12.
Yep.
Everyone's like, well, now they're definitely going to move to number 2. And we just kind of did that as like a gut reaction. Well, this is what they're going to do. But if you really think about it, like you said, from 12 to 2 is a huge move. Do you think the Colts will move down to 12?
I think the Colts have a ton of holes. Obviously, they were drafting 3rd overall when this whole ordeal started. And now they're at 6, and I think that they already have a franchise quarterback in Andrew Luck, and they have a new GM in Chris Ballard, who knows that he needs to fill a lot of these holes, and the more picks he can acquire, top tier picks that will influence right away when they get into the NFL, the better. I think he would be an ideal person to target to trade up if I were the Bills. I'm not sure what that would cost, but
there was a report out of Peter King's Monday Morning Quarterback where he said, I guess he was said to have said he wants a 2nd-round pick to move from and he was saying the Dolphins, because I'm worried about the Dolphins taking a quarterback too.
Yep.
The Dolphins moving up from 11 to 6. I mean, but here's the issue I have with that. If the Bills somehow do make the trade with the Colts and they get to 6, I mean, the top 4 guys are off the board by now, right?
If it goes that way.
So you're trading up to 6 to get Mason Rudolph?
See, this is going to be a draft day trade. It's not going to happen before. It's going to happen literally when the Colts are probably on the clock.
So you're saying if the Colts are on the clock and the top 4 quarterbacks are gone, do you think the Bills even pull the trigger on that trade?
No, I don't.
Because what's the point, right?
I think they stay where they are. Maybe they look then down the line a little bit. Maybe jump to...
You mean trade down?
No.
Oh.
Trade up, maybe use the 12th pick and trade up to maybe 9 with the Niners. I know they're probably looking to move back depending on who's on the board, and take a guy like Lamar Jackson, maybe take a guy like Mason Rudolph. But you're gonna have to get in front of the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are looking to take a quarterback. I
think
believe.
So?
Yeah.
Even with Tannehill's contract, they don't care?
Yep. I think so. I think that they don't know how he's going to come back off this injury, and they might be looking a little bit down the line. So I would think that you would need to get in front of them if the Bills front office deems that a guy that they would want to hang their hat on, hang their jobs on, is there still. You would want to make that move and take him. I think if there's not a guy like that, they stay at 12 and 22 and maybe not draft a quarterback unless one falls into their lap.
Do you think they would wait even? I don't see a way that they don't take one in the first round. Do you think there's a way they wait till the second round, take like a Loletta or anything like that, or from Richmond, or is that more of like a New England Patriots sort of pick where they let him develop for a couple years? Because the Patriots just made that big trade.
Yep.
And what I'm worried about as a Bills fan is the Bills stay put at 12, which scares me because the Dolphins, like you said, are ahead of them, and they're gonna. That whole scenario as a Bills fan, you're a 49ers fan. You don't want the guys in your division to get their next franchise quarterback.
Yep.
So when I look at having to deal with, 19 years of Brady or however long it's been.
400.
No exaggeration at all.
Roughly.
At least 400. I don't want the Jets to get their franchise quarterback, which it looks like they probably will.
They made the move. They're definitely getting their guy.
Whether he ends up being good or not is one thing, but I cannot handle either possibly the Dolphins or the Jets getting their franchise guy. Like, that scares the crap out of me as a fan.
Yep. Which is why, if I am Brandon Beane, I overpay to go up and
get Mason Rudolph
and
get
Mason Rudolph. You have to trust your front office, your scouting department, but you have to be aggressive. You can't sit there and then, oh my God, all of a sudden Denver doesn't take a quarterback, and you're sitting there at 6, and you see there's been a trade. The Patriots move up, give up 23, 31,
just
and
stop.
something else.
Don't even finish this.
It could happen.
I don't want to hear about the Patriots
Dolphins
moving up to 6 and then getting their franchise quarterback.
That's what I'm
for
saying.
The next 19 years.
You need to be
the next
aggressive.
400 years roughly.
You need to be aggressive if you're the Bills. You have so much draft capital. You've acquired so much of it through trades, and this is why. This is why you've accumulated all of that. This is why you made that move with Cordy Glenn to move up to the 12th, to make it a little bit more palatable for the team that you're going to trade up with in the top 5 or 6 to go and drop to 12 and still be all right with where they're at in regards to what player they're going to get at 12, plus all of the other trade assets that they're going to get, all the draft capital.
Wow, dude, I get nervous when we talk about
it's going to be fireworks.
We talk about the first 4 picks and first 5 picks and 4 quarterbacks, and I mean the way that we're talking about it doesn't sound like the Bills are going to get a chance at any of those top guys that we mentioned, which it's very possible. I mean unless they trade up with one of those guys at like Indy and then they trade again somehow with the Giants and give up their first pick next year or something.
Yep.
Or they got to at least give up their first pick next year.
Every pick has a price.
Yeah.
And especially with what the Bills have already done, they jumped to 12. The immediate thought was because they have 2 first-round picks, and now they're at 12, and they're just getting ready to put together a package to move up again. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to get taken advantage of a little bit in the trade value chart portion of looking at a trade, but we've said this whole podcast that you cannot win in the NFL without a franchise guy. You just can't.
No.
People might say, I've heard some people, you probably have too, we have A.J. McCarron. Let's see what the kid's got. Who knows what he can be? I mean, we do. We've seen him sit on the bench behind Andy freaking Dalton for how many years? He is a very serviceable backup quarterback.
Is he better than Tyrod Taylor?
Yes. If you can't tell,
is Johnny Manziel better than Tyrod Taylor?
Right now, probably not. If he was
Texas A&M, Johnny Manziel.
Texas A&M, Johnny Manziel was just an insane
football,
person.
buddy. Johnny football. Well, this podcast right now, I mean, we're going on over an hour, so I'm gonna cut this one short. Well, not short. I'm going to cut it at over an hour long, but I want to talk about other positions. I'm going to make this a 2-part podcast, like I thought I might have to.
Yep.
So, guys, stick with us. Want to thank Zach for joining us on the podcast. It was a pleasure to talk with you, learn more about these prospects from someone that's actually seen them play. The guys, there's a ton of info on this podcast. So feel free to listen to 2 or 3 times if you have to. I know I'm going to, and I just talked to you in person, Zach. So for right now, we'll end the podcast. We'll bring it up again early next week. Hey, Zach, where can they follow you if they want to track your sports, NFL, college football, DFS knowledge?
Gambling.
My
Twitter account is at CALAX12, CALAX12.
So it's at CALAX.
1-2.
All right.
Yep.
Thanks a lot. So for Zach.
Go Niners, Jimmy GQ.
And for me, Nate, go Bills. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for listening to the Circling the Wagons podcast. Download and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast service. Email us at ctwpod@gmail.com. That's Charlie Tango Whiskey Pod @gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at ctwpod. And most importantly, go Bills.
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.